The Holy Gospel according to Matthew, the 25th chapter. Glory to you, O Lord. Then the kingdom of heaven will be like this. 10 bridesmaids took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were wise. When the foolish ones took their lamps, they took no oil with them, but the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps. As the bridegroom was delayed, all of them became drowsy and slept. But at midnight, there was a shout, "Look, here is the bridegroom, come out to meet him." Then all those bridesmaids got up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out." But the wise replied, "No, there won't be enough for you and for us. You'd better go out to the dealers and buy some for yourselves." And while they went to buy it, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went with him into the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later, the other bridesmaids came also, saying, "Lord, Lord, open to us." But he replied, "Truly, I tell you, I do not know you. Keep awake, therefore, for you know neither the hour nor the day." The gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. You may be seated. Beloved of God, grace to you and peace from the one who created us, redeemed us, and moves among us still. Amen. One of Grace's most fantastic ministries, in my humble opinion, is our Summer Vacation Bible School program, which we shorthand VBS. An incredible team of volunteers pulls together a week-long morning program for almost 100 kids in our congregation and in our community. And it gives them the chance to learn about Jesus through singing and dancing and crafts and cool projects and opportunities to serve here in our neighborhood. This summer's VBS theme was stellar, and it was truly an out-of-this-world adventure. This entire chancel was transformed into this outer space set with moon rocks and rocket ships and a background with all of the planetary gorgeousness that you might imagine. And Derek, our director for teen ministry, and I had a blast donning full-on astronaut costumes each morning and taking on the personas of lead pastronaut and astronaut Derek so that we could help the kids start their day with themed skits. There are pictures of these things somewhere. The entire week was about helping our kids learn about shining Jesus' light. And hands down, my favorite part about those morning skits were these short daily themes that we invited kids to respond to by shouting out, "Shine Jesus' light." Some of you were volunteers and you're doing the hand motions with me. So for example, when life feels dark, shine Jesus' light. When people are sad, shine Jesus' light. You get the picture, yes? All right, so inspired as I was this week by the exuberant summer shouting of our kiddos, here's my question for all of us today. How do we light up the world? How do we light up the world? Today's gospel reading invites us into a story about 10 bridesmaids and their lamps. They're awaiting the groom so that the party can get started, but the groom is later than anyone expected, and suddenly there's some worry about whether there's enough oil to keep those lamps burning deep into the night. 5 of the bridesmaids brought extra flasks of oil, but 5 didn't, and when the 5 less prepared bridesmaids ask the ones who brought extra to share, they say, "Nope, if I give you some of mine, I'm not going to have enough for myself, so you better get down to the 7-Eleven and buy some before they close." And wouldn't you know it? Well, those 5 bridesmaids are out searching and scrounging for more oil. The groom comes. He lets everyone into the party and he closes the door behind them. And when those 5 friends return, and when they knock on the door, they hear, "Sorry, you can't come in. I don't know you." Now, let me tell you that Bible scholars of all stripes have a lot to say about today's gospel reading. I know this because I went down approximately 1 million interpretive rabbit holes in my study this week. And there's one actually that I want to lift up. Some threads of Christianity interpret this as sort of a threatening story about the end times and about staying morally and spiritually vigilant so that you won't get shut out into the eternal darkness of hell when Jesus comes back again. And I actually think this is a pretty damaging misinterpretation of this story, but I name it because I know that there are a number of folks in our congregation, both here and online, who have experienced a fair amount of what I only know how to call spiritual damage in some other settings that use this kind of a threatening lens to interpret the Bible. And we're not going to dial all the way down into that this morning, except to just say that this vision of a Jesus who shuts people out into eternal darkness just doesn't seem to square with the Jesus that we meet in the rest of Matthew's gospel. The Jesus who is like the shepherd who leaves the 99 sheep in order to go find that one who is lost. The Jesus who Matthew says, in fact, came to seek and to save the lost. And the Jesus who, in his Sermon on the Mount that we started to hear last week in Matthew chapter 5, calls us to be salt for the earth and light for the world. And that's actually what I keep thinking about with this parable this week. The light of those lamps flickering in the dark night as everybody waited in anticipation for the joy of this wedding party to begin. Whether we came to the proverbial party with flames that are burning bright and strong with oil enough to share, or whether our light feels a little weak and sputtery and like it's maybe about to give out, here we are together today, called to be light for the world. Over these past 5 weeks, church, we have been journeying through an annual generosity appeal that's inviting us as a congregation to increase our total financial giving as a community by about $3,250 per week in 2024 so that we can follow God's call to be light for the world. As a congregation, we believe that God is calling us to help us transform our community through a budgeted annual gift to our sister congregation, Misión Luterana Unidad in Berwyn. Last week in worship, we heard from Pastora Maria Rojas, who serves Unidad, about their vital ministry with members of the Latino LGBTQ plus community who have been really disowned by their churches and families because of their identities, and with at-risk youth who are finding hope and community through Unidad's vibrant and growing youth program, and their ministry with migrants and immigrants and refugees who are among the most vulnerable in our city. And we believe that God is calling us to invest more deeply in our youth as we expand our director for teen ministry role from 20 hours a week, which is what it's been historically, into a full-time role. We know that these last several years have been deeply challenging for so many of our teenagers. Rates of mental health concerns have skyrocketed among our young people who need to know and feel and experience the love of God, now perhaps more than ever. Knowing that many of our high schoolers have had a hard time staying connected to their faith, we launched a new program for 10th through 12th graders at the beginning of September that has more than doubled the participation of our older high schoolers in our ministries at Grace. That program, called Generation Grace, has already been an incredible complement to our Wednesday night Genesis program, which regularly welcomes 20 to 25 teenagers into Bible study and reflection and service projects and fun. And expanding our director for teen ministry role into a full-time staff positions allows us to be light for our teenagers as they learn more about what it means to be light for the world. And friends, we believe that God is calling us to sustain our history of ministry excellence here at Grace. Easily the most beautiful part of this generosity appeal season for me has been reading and hearing the testimonies about how this congregation has impacted your lives. You, people of Grace, embody a spirit of welcome and openness that draws people from all walks of life. Increasingly, we are a community that allows ourselves to be transformed by the courage of new people who might never have experienced church before, or who have been away from church for a long time and are looking for a place to belong, or who have maybe been hurt in some other church spaces and find in you a place of healing. You are a people who know the power of gathering for worship, of singing the song of the church, of guiding and celebrating our children in the faith, and of creating spaces of care and connection for our older adults. You are a people of extravagant generosity, reaching out in love and service to support veterans who are experiencing homelessness, and refugees beginning new lives here, and organizations like Beds Plus and Constance Morris House and Interfaith Community Partners and Aging Care Connections. And it's here, friends, right here in this local expression of Christ's church, where we remind one another, where we strengthen each other to light up the world. Today we celebrate our Commitment Sunday, friends. During our offering moment, you will be invited to place your 2024 Giving Intent card in the offering plate, or to complete an online version where there's a QR code in your bulletin as a sign of your commitment to grow in support of the ministries that God has entrusted to us as a congregation. Completing an intent card will be a new practice for some of us, I know, but I want you to know that Grace's counsel and staff and generosity team are already leading the way. Everyone on those leadership teams has already shared an intent card, along actually with dozens of the rest of you who just couldn't wait for today. I feel like it's like the Commitment Sunday equivalent of those bridesmaids who brought the extra flask of oil along with them. Thank you. And I want you to hear clearly, church, that it's your participation that matters. It's not about the number that you write on that card. Even the smallest coins are abundant treasure in God's economy. Instead, this is about allowing God to change your heart and your life through committing to a regular practice of generosity that is light for the world. And that's how I'd like to close today, church, with a joyful reminder that we are called in all things to shine Jesus' light. So even if you feel sort of nerdy doing this, will you do it with me, please? Can you take your cue from our young ones at Summer VBS and call that response back to me? When life feels dark, shine Jesus' light. When people need help, shine Jesus' light. When we're lonely and afraid, shine Jesus' light. When good things happen, shine Jesus' light. In all things and with our whole selves, shine Jesus' light. Amen.